In the heart of a quiet and beautiful village called Nomusa, there lived a couple that everyone admired, Dalia and Kemo. From the outside, they looked like the perfect husband and wife. Dalia was kind, graceful, and wise. She was the kind of woman who greeted everyone with a warm smile and helped anyone in need. The villagers respected her deeply and often praised her gentle heart and calm spirit. Kemo, her husband, was a handsome and successful businessman. He had a smooth way with words and always made people laugh with his charm. Whenever people saw them together, they said, "If true love lives anywhere, it lives in Dalia and Kemo." They had been married for 10 years, and to the world, their life seemed like a beautiful dream. They lived in a grand house in the elegant Makora estate, a place only the wealthy could afford. Their home was filled with luxury, laughter, and what looked like happiness. Dalia would cook Kemo's favorite meals, and he would bring her flowers every weekend. They attended village festivals hand in hand, always smiling, always shining. Neighbors admired them, and often used their relationship as an example of what a good marriage should be. But behind the closed doors of their beautiful house, a silent storm had started to rise. Something was changing, something that Dalia could feel but could not explain. Her husband's kisses started to feel cold, his smiles less real, and his eyes seemed to wander far away from home. The man who once held her hand tightly now barely touched her at all. Though she kept smiling in front of others, Dalia's heart was slowly breaking. She didn't want to believe it, but deep down, she knew the perfect love story she had built was starting to fall apart. It began slowly, like a shadow creeping into a once bright room. Dalia first noticed the small things. Kemo's phone, which he once left carelessly on the table, was now always in his pocket or face down. When it rang and she reached out to answer, he would rush over, snatch it from her hand, and say, "It's just work, nothing important." But his voice no longer sounded warm, it sounded guarded. Something had changed, and Dalia could feel it in her bones. Then came the late-night meetings. Kemo, who used to rush home to have dinner with her, suddenly had endless business appointments. He would come home long after the moon had risen, sometimes without calling, sometimes without explanation. When Dalia asked, he would smile faintly and say, "You know how business is, always something urgent." But that smile wasn't the same smile she had fallen in love with. It was hollow, empty, like a mask hiding something deeper. Weekends, which used to be their special time together, started disappearing too. Kemo would leave early in the morning and return late, claiming he had to travel to nearby towns for client meetings. But Dalia noticed he never brought back files or notes, just tired eyes, rumpled clothes, and an unfamiliar scent that didn't belong to her. The cologne he wore was different, one she didn't buy. Sometimes, his shirts carried a faint trace of perfume that wasn't hers. It clung to him like a secret, and it pierced her heart more than words ever could. Still, Dalia didn't want to believe the worst. She kept telling herself, maybe he's just stressed. Maybe he's really working hard for our future. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Her heart felt heavier every day, and her smile became harder to wear. Then, the signs became harder to ignore. One evening, as she was folding his clothes, she noticed a light pink smudge on the collar of his white shirt. Lipstick. Not the shade she wore, not even close. Her hands trembled as she touched it. Her mind screamed, but her lips stayed quiet. She didn't want to cause trouble, didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the pain was becoming too loud to silence. She also began to notice strange things on his phone. Messages from a number saved under the name Musa Electrician, but no electrician texts about love or sends heart emojis at midnight. One day, curiosity took over, and Dalia opened a message. It read, "I miss your touch already." Her heart dropped. She couldn't breathe for a moment. She stared at the screen, her hands shaking. That wasn't business. That wasn't friendship. That was betrayal. Still, when Kemo came home that night, Dalia said nothing. She stared at him, wondering how he could lie so easily, how he could eat her food, sleep in her bed, and still carry another woman in his heart. She started to feel like a stranger in her own home. The man she had loved for years was slipping away from her, one lie at a time. She cried in silence, hiding her tears in the pillow at night. She prayed, she hoped, but deep down, she knew her husband was no longer truly hers. Something was terribly wrong, and soon the truth would come out in a way no one expected. One sunny afternoon, Dalia decided to take a walk through Mbuyo Market, hoping the fresh air and busy atmosphere would clear her heavy thoughts. The market was always full of life, women bargaining over vegetables, children running around with snacks, traders calling out for customers. But on this particular day, something unusual caught everyone's attention. A shiny black car pulled up slowly at the edge of the market. It wasn't the kind of car people often saw in Namusa. It was sleek, expensive, and had city air written all over it. The car door opened, and out stepped a woman who immediately turned heads. She wore bold, flashy colors that sparkled in the sunlight. Her heels clicked confidently on the ground. Her fingers were decorated with gold rings, and her ears held earrings as big as coins. Around her neck was a necklace that looked like it cost more than most people's entire savings. Her makeup was flawless, and her eyes sparkled with pride. No, arrogance. The whole market paused for a second as people stared. Women began whispering to each other. Who is she? Where is she from? Look at those clothes. Then one of the fruit sellers leaned closer to Dalia and murmured, That's Zira, the new woman from the city. People say she just moved into Makora estate, all alone, but living big. Dalia looked at the woman, not knowing that this bold stranger was the same woman who had already broken her home. She had no idea that the woman she was staring at was the same one who had been sharing her husband's bed for the past 8 months. The same woman who had stolen Kemo's time, love and loyalty. The same woman whose perfume she had smelled on his jacket. The same woman whose lipstick stained his shirt. The same woman behind those secret messages from Musa Electrician. Zira wasn't just a random stranger. She was the woman Kemo met during a business trip to Safana City. What started as a one-night flirt turned into a full-blown affair. Kemo had become obsessed. He started spending more money on Zira than on his own household. He rented her a fully furnished apartment in a posh part of the estate. He showered her with expensive clothes, jewelry, and all the luxuries Dalia never even asked for. When he told Dalia he was going for business conferences, he was actually going on weekend getaways with Zira. When he said he had emergency meetings, he was dining in high-end restaurants with his mistress. Zira knew Kemo was married, but she didn't care. In fact, it made her feel more powerful. Stealing another woman's husband gave her a twisted sense of pride. She saw Dalia as a weak village woman who could never compete with her city glam. Kemo, blinded by lust and ego, fell deeper into Zira's trap every day. And while Dalia was still trying to understand why her once loving husband had grown so distant, the answer had already arrived, in bold colors, gold jewelry, and a smug smile. The storm in her marriage had a name now. It was Zira. But Dalia didn't know yet. Her world was about to be shaken even more. The walls of their once joyful home now felt cold and unfamiliar. The laughter that once filled every corner had disappeared, replaced by silence and suspicion. Dalia, once full of warmth and energy, now walked through the house like a ghost. Her heart carried a heaviness she couldn't explain, and her soul felt tired. Even the flowers she used to care for in the garden seemed to wilt with her sadness. She tried to talk to Kemo. One evening, as they sat at the dining table, she looked into his eyes and asked softly, Kemo, is there something you're hiding from me? Her voice trembled, not out of anger, but from pain and confusion. Kemo didn't even look up from his plate. He chuckled coldly and said, You're imagining things, Dalia. You listen too much to gossip. His words hit her harder than a slap, not because he denied it, but because he didn't even care to lie properly. His voice lacked tenderness. His eyes no longer held the love they once shared. Dalia tried to convince herself it was just stress, maybe a rough season in their marriage. She hoped it would pass. She cleaned the house with more energy, cooked his favorite meals, wore his favorite dress, trying to bring back the love they had. But Kemo barely noticed. His mind, his body, his heart were somewhere else. And that somewhere had a name, Zira. Nights became her worst enemy. She would lie awake staring at the ceiling, waiting for Kemo to return from his so-called meetings. Sometimes he came home past midnight, smelling of foreign perfume. Sometimes he didn't come at all. The bed felt colder. Her pillow was soaked in silent tears. Even during the day, her fake smiles couldn't hide the pain in her eyes. The maids noticed how quiet she had become. They saw her sitting by the window for hours, lost in thought, waiting for a husband who had already left her in spirit. People in the village started whispering. Some were kind, others cruel. Dalia looks thinner these days. Maybe Kemo has found someone else. Such a shame for a woman like her. These whispers reached Dalia's ears, cutting her deeper than she ever admitted. But she never responded. She never defended herself. She simply walked with her head held high, even though her heart was sinking lower each day. One afternoon, as she visited the village shrine to drop off food for the poor, the elderly priest, Father Nwoga, gently took her hand. His voice was calm and wise as he said, "Child, the eyes may be deceived, but the heart always knows the truth." Dalia stood still. Those words echoed in her mind long after she returned home. Her heart did know. It had known for a long time. But her hope kept fighting the truth. She believed that love could heal anything, that if she just stayed kind, stayed patient, and stayed faithful, things would get better. She prayed harder. She fasted. She lit candles at night and whispered her pain to the stars. But nothing changed. The more she gave, the more Kemo pulled away. And while Dalia hoped for a miracle, fate had already begun to write a different story, one that would change everything. As their 10th wedding anniversary approached, Dalia felt a deep longing in her heart, a longing to bring back the love they once shared, to remind Kemo of the memories they had built together. Despite the pain, despite the whispers and the sleepless nights, she wasn't ready to give up just yet. She believed there was still a chance to save their marriage, to awaken the man who once held her hand with pride and promised her forever. So, she made a bold decision. She would fight for her love one last time. In secret, Dalia began to plan something special, a grand surprise anniversary celebration that would leave Kemo speechless. If love had faded, maybe a powerful reminder would bring it back. She wanted the event to be magical, unforgettable, something that would shake his heart and make him realize what he was losing. She booked the most prestigious venue in the entire region, the House of Malkari. It was a place where only royals and the wealthiest celebrated their moments. It had chandeliers as bright as stars, golden curtains, and floors that sparkled like diamonds. Dalia didn't care about the cost. This was about love. She coordinated everything without Kemo knowing. She told him she'd be away for a few days on a women's retreat in a nearby village, so he wouldn't get suspicious. Behind the scenes, she met with decorators, event planners, and caterers. She selected the most elegant decorations, ordered his favorite dishes, and even arranged for a live band to play the love songs they once danced to. She designed a photo slideshow capturing their beautiful moments from the past 10 years, vacations, celebrations, even the day they bought their first home. Her heart ached while picking those photos, but she believed it would soften his. Dalia invited everyone, friends, family, business associates, even village elders who had blessed their marriage years ago. Everyone was excited, and many praised her loyalty and determination. "Dalia is a strong woman," they whispered. "She still believes in love, even when it's fading." Her plan was simple but powerful. Surprise Kemo, celebrate their journey, and touch his heart with the warmth of everything they had shared. She imagined him walking in, shocked, moved, and maybe, just maybe, feeling guilty enough to let go of whatever darkness had taken over him. She imagined them dancing again, laughing again, starting afresh. Hope still burned in her chest, refusing to die. But what Dalia didn't know was that Kemo also had a plan, one that had nothing to do with love or celebration. While she was preparing candles and cakes, he was preparing lies and betrayal. While she was booking florists, he was planning a private weekend away, not with his wife, but with Zira. Kemo didn't even remember the date of their anniversary. To him, it was just another excuse to be away from home, another weekend of pleasure wrapped in lies. As Dalia placed the final touches on the celebration hall, dreaming of saving her love, fate was already weaving a cruel twist behind the scenes. And in just a few days, the truth would come crashing down in a way no one expected. A surprise meant to restore love was about to destroy it forever. The evening finally arrived, the night Dalia had poured her heart and soul into. She looked like a vision in her flowing red gown, her hair elegantly styled, her face glowing with hope and anticipation. As she stepped into the House of Malkari, the grand venue shimmered like a fairy tale. Guests had already begun to arrive. Music played softly in the background, and warm lights danced across the decorated walls. Everything was perfect, except for one thing. Kemo wasn't there. At first, Dalia thought he might be caught in traffic. She smiled politely, hiding her nervousness as guests began asking, "Where's Kemo?" Minutes turned into a half hour. The band played on, but her heart grew restless. She stepped aside and called his assistant. "Is Kemo on his way?" she asked, trying to sound casual. The assistant hesitated, then replied, "He said he's at Zavita Lodge with a client, some last-minute business discussion." Dalia's smile faded instantly. Zavita Lodge. On their anniversary night, doubt clouded her mind, but she didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it truly was business. Maybe he'd come straight after. but her heart refused to sit still. Something didn't feel right. Without saying a word to anyone, Dalia quietly left the celebration hall. She got into her car and instructed her driver, "Take me to Zavita Lodge." Now, her hands trembled in her lap as they drove. Her mind raced with questions and fears. What if something was wrong? What if everything she feared was true? The car pulled up to the elegant resort entrance. Dalia stepped out, her red gown flowing behind her like a river of broken dreams. She walked into the lobby with shaky steps, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. She scanned the room, nothing unusual. Then she asked the receptionist, "I'm looking for Kemo. He said he had a meeting here." The receptionist hesitated, then pointed toward the private suites upstairs. Dalia's heart pounded. She walked up slowly, her breath catching in her throat with every step. As she reached the top floor, laughter echoed from one of the rooms. Familiar laughter, Kemo's voice. Her hands trembled as she pushed the door slightly open, and there it was, a scene that shattered everything she believed in. Inside the private suite, Kemo was dancing, his arms wrapped tightly around Zira. Candles flickered in the background, soft music played, and a table was decorated with rose petals. A cake sat on the table, and written on it in golden icing were the words, "To us, forever." Champagne glasses clinked. Zira laughed, resting her head on Kemo's chest as he whispered sweet nothings in her ear. Dalia stood frozen at the doorway. Her heart stopped, her hands went cold. Her world collapsed in that single moment. She had planned a surprise celebration of love, loyalty, and togetherness, but Kemo had planned a secret celebration of betrayal. And the worst part? He looked happier with Zira than he had looked with Dalia in years. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry aloud. She turned around slowly, her heart broken, but her dignity intact. That night, she realized the truth she had been denying for too long, and though her world had just crashed, a new chapter of strength and destiny was about to begin. Dalia could no longer hold herself back. Her heart was racing, her eyes burning with pain and anger. She pushed the door open fully and stormed into the room. The romantic music came to a screeching halt, and the laughter instantly died. Kemo turned around, his face draining of color the moment he saw her standing there, his wife, the woman he had promised to love forever, now witnessing the ugliest truth of his betrayal. He stood, frozen, unable to say a word. Zira, completely unbothered, glanced at Dalia with a mocking smirk. Her eyes scanned Dalia from head to toe, and then she let out a soft, sarcastic laugh. "So, this is your wife?" she said loudly, looking at Kemo. "How ordinary. No wonder you needed something better." Dalia didn't flinch. She looked straight into Kemo's eyes, her voice calm but sharp like a blade. 10 years of marriage, Kemo. 10 years of love, loyalty, and sacrifice. And this is how you honor me. Kemo's lips trembled as he tried to defend himself. "Dalia, it's not what it looks like. I can explain." But Dalia held up her hand, silencing him. "Don't insult my intelligence," she said coldly. "It is exactly what it looks like." She reached into her clutch bag and pulled out her phone. With steady hands, she began recording everything. The decorated room, the cake with "To Us Forever," Zira's presence, and Kemo standing like a guilty thief caught red-handed. "This is what you were doing while I was planning a grand celebration to honor you. While I gathered our families, our friends, our community to celebrate our 10 years together, you were here celebrating betrayal." Zira rolled her eyes again, stepping closer with pride. "You're just a village wife. He belongs to me now. You should go back to your little kitchen and leave him to a real woman." But Dalia simply smiled, a smile that was no longer of love. It was the smile of a woman who had found her truth and wasn't afraid anymore. "Let's see what the village says about that," she replied calmly. "Let's see how they feel when they watch this video. Let's see if the man they admire, the businessman they respect, still has their support after this." Kemo's face turned pale. He knew what this meant. Dalia was no longer the quiet, forgiving wife. She was done pretending, done hoping, done waiting. And now, the whole village would know the truth. He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. "You made your choice, Kemo," she said. "You threw away everything we had for this moment of lust and lies." And just like that, Dalia turned and walked out, her head held high, her heart broken, but her spirit unshaken. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but one thing was clear. She was no longer a woman living in someone else's shadow. She was ready to reclaim her power. The storm had come, but so had her strength. By sunrise, Dalia had already made her decision. She shared the video, every second of it, on social media platforms. She also sent it privately to all the guests who had been waiting at the anniversary celebration, wondering why Kemo hadn't shown up. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire across the village of Namusa and beyond. People watched in disbelief, mouths wide open, as the truth unfolded before their eyes. "Can you believe this?" neighbors whispered. So that's where he was, while Dalia was planning something beautiful for him. The once respected Kemo, known for his charm and business success, was suddenly the subject of public disgrace. His phone didn't stop ringing, not from clients or friends, but from reporters, angry investors, and disappointed community members. His reputation, built over years, crumbled in mere hours. Within 3 days, his business began to collapse. His biggest partners pulled out of major deals. Clients started canceling contracts. Suppliers refused to work with him. No one wanted to be associated with a man whose face had now become a symbol of betrayal. Even the village elders, who had once praised Kemo for his business achievements, summoned him for questioning. Sitting before them in shame, he could hardly lift his head. The elders declared that his actions had dishonored not just his wife, but the entire community. They stripped him of all honorary titles and roles, including his position in the village council. People began avoiding him. Shopkeepers stopped greeting him with respect. Even children whispered and laughed when he walked by. What hurt him most were the voices of those who once admired him, now calling him a disgrace. "That's the man who betrayed the Queen of Makora," they would say. "The one who threw away gold for glitter. And Zira, she vanished as quickly as she had come." Rumors swirled that she had emptied the bank account Kemo had opened for her and fled the region. Some said she was spotted boarding a bus to another city. Others claimed she had deceived several men before and was only after wealth. Now, Kemo was alone. No business, no respect, no mistress, and no wife. He was left with only regret and shame. The man who once walked with pride now moved through the streets with bowed shoulders and hidden eyes. Meanwhile, Dalia remained quiet and calm. She didn't need to speak further. The truth had spoken for her, and the village stood with her, stronger than ever. While many expected Dalia to disappear into sadness after the betrayal, she surprised everyone. Instead of letting the pain break her, she used it as fuel to rise higher than ever before. Her quiet strength, her grace in handling humiliation, and her bold decision to expose the truth made her a hero in the eyes of many. Women across Namusa and nearby villages began reaching out to her, some to comfort her, others to find comfort in her. They saw in Dalia a reflection of their own pain, but more importantly, a symbol of what survival looked like. She didn't just survive, she thrived. And soon, she decided to turn her pain into purpose. Dalia launched a foundation called Women of Honor. Its mission was simple but powerful: to help women who had been cheated, betrayed, abused, or abandoned. She opened a small center in Makora Estate where women could share their stories, get counseling, learn skills, and receive legal support. What started with 5 women grew into a movement. Weekly meetings turned into seminars, and her foundation began gaining recognition far and wide. Elder Nwoga, the wise priest who had once consoled her in silence, was the first to suggest her for leadership. He saw her strength, her clarity, and her ability to lead with empathy and wisdom. The village elders offered her a seat on the council, a position rarely given to women. Dalia accepted it with humility, determined to use her voice for justice and change. Soon, she became a key advisor in Namusa's cultural council. Her opinions carried weight, her decisions influenced policies, and her voice echoed in the chambers of leadership. People no longer spoke of her as just Kemo's wife. They now called her Mama Dalia, the woman who turned betrayal into a blessing. She walked with pride, not in arrogance, but in quiet dignity. She wore her scars like royal ornaments, not hiding what she had endured, but showing the world that strength often comes from suffering. The same woman who had once cried silently in her room was now addressing crowds, helping young girls, and rewriting the definition of womanhood in her community. What made Dalia so powerful wasn't just her rise. It was the way she brought others with her. Her story became a fire that lit up other lives. She turned pain into a purpose, and heartbreak into healing, not just for herself, but for so many others. And so, while Kemo faded into shadows, Dalia rose like the morning sun, bold, bright, and unstoppable. 1 year had passed since that unforgettable night, the night when truth shattered illusions and the world saw Kemo for who he really was. Time had moved on, But life had not been kind to him. The once proud businessman, who used to drive luxury cars and wear imported suits, was now barely recognizable. His clothes were torn, his eyes hollow, and his hands stretched out in desperation. Outside the house of Malkari, the very place where Dalia had once planned a grand anniversary celebration to honor their love, Kemo now sat on the cold pavement, begging for coins. Life had come full circle. The building that was once meant to echo with music and laughter now echoed with his sorrowful cries. Some people passed him without a glance. Others recognized him, whispered, and shook their heads, saying, "Look at him now, the man who threw away a diamond for dust." Meanwhile, Dalia had become a symbol of strength and dignity. That same day, a major event was being held at the House of Malkari, a cultural summit organized by the council, and Dalia, now one of the most respected leaders in Namusa, was the guest of honor. She arrived in a royal blue gown, elegant and poised, her presence commanding admiration. Dignitaries from across regions gathered around her, offering greetings and praise. As she stepped out of her car, the crowd parted for her, her head held high, her smile calm, and her heart at peace. But then, a familiar voice called out from the shadows, weak, broken, almost unrecognizable. "Dalia, Dalia, forgive me, please." She turned, and there he was, Kemo, kneeling on the ground, his hands trembling, eyes pleading. For a moment there was silence. Even the wind seemed to pause. Dalia looked at him, not with hatred, not with anger, but with the quiet strength of a woman who had seen the worst and risen above it. Slowly, she walked toward him. The crowd watched, breathless. Kemo lowered his head. "I made a mistake. I lost everything. Please, just one word from you." She stood still, gazing at the man who had once broken her heart, now broken by life itself. And then she spoke softly, but her words cut through the air like a blade. "Forgiveness is for the soul, but consequences are for your choices." With that, she turned away and walked forward, her head high, her dignity untouched, her spirit radiant. The crowd erupted in silent awe, and Kemo remained there, watching the woman he had once underestimated walk away. Stronger than ever, Karma had spoken. If Dalia's courage, patience, and justice touched your heart, remember this: life may tolerate betrayal for a while, but karma never forgets. Every lie, every heartbreak meets its day of reckoning. Today, someone may be a victim, but tomorrow, they can become a symbol of strength. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful and emotional stories that will move your soul.